population on this planet have been looking for a savior. 90% of people believe in a higher power, and every religion believes in some sort of messianic figure. And when this savior character actually comes to Earth, we want to make him abide by our rules. We have to understand that this is a paradigm shift. We have to start thinking beyond politics.
Are there any moral constraints on this person? We have international law. On this earth, every act is a political act.
Is it really surprising that the most powerful man in the world should be a figure of controversy?
To have an individual engaging in these state-level interventions should give us all pause.
Human beings have a horrible track record of following people of great power down paths that led to huge human atrocities.
We have always created icons in our own image. What we've done is we project ourselves onto him. The fact is, maybe he's not some sort of devil or Jesus character. Maybe he's just a guy trying to do the right thing.
We're talking about a being whose very existence challenges our own sense of priority in the universe. And you go back to Copernicus, where he restored the sun in the center of the known universe, displacing Earth. And you get to Darwinian evolution, and you find out we're not special on this Earth, we're just one among other life forms. And now we learn that we're not even special in the entire universe because there is Superman. There he is, an alien among us. We're not alone.
Are you, as a United States Senator, personally comfortable saying to a grieving parent, Superman could have saved your child, but on principle, we did not want him to act?
I'm not saying he shouldn't act. I'm saying he shouldn't act unilaterally.
What are we talking about here then? Must there be a Superman?
There is.
I mean, what is the 666? It's man, it's Satan, it's the beast. It's the beast comes from mankind itself because we are tainted. We are those who are given free will and choice. And there will be elements of those who use that free will and choice for darkness, which is, I mean, look at the LGBT community. It's Pride Month right now. Everyone's walking around with fretted kids with dildos sticking out of their asses downtown every freaking state right now. It's disrespectful. You know, our community's been hijacked the same way the church has. Everything everyone loves. Star Wars. I'm going to watch The Acolyte after this tonight. I am praying to God that they don't ruin it. Like watching Tales of the Empire the other week, I'm just getting ear raped with they, and I'm just like, it's just too much. And I'm just like, please don't ruin this. Please don't ruin this. I have so little in this world. Please don't ruin this. There is no depth to what they will pervert, distort, and try to conquer.
There's nothing
I think it's important to remember as we nothing. Except for the initial messages, things like Jesus Christ and the Buddha. Sorry, go ahead.
Though, yeah, no, those origins of things, you know, they can't really well. They have. I understand that they have. That's what the church currently does, is taint those things, and they make money from it and everything like that. But at the same time, whenever a movie decides to destroy a mythology by making it current in any direction or the other, even if right now, whatever rightism, whatever it is called, is like flourishing the way whatever else is, it doesn't matter which direction. If you take it in a certain direction or another, it's going to pervert the mythology of the Star Wars, you know, thing that they got going on, which I believe is the Mahabharata, if I'm not mistaken. But they're the ones making the movie, and they're free to do what they want to do with it. And at which point it's like, damn. And I hate to beat a dead horse here, but we're gonna find ourselves with the books again, because all of the Star Wars mythology is in books, and those books are good, you know.
Yeah,
and,
I have 80 plus of them on a bookshelf. Like, I have so much of it, and I'm gonna get hundreds more. My goal before I die is to have the entire expanded universe collection. Like, I'm going through New Jedi Order right now, and then High Republic, which is Disney era, but New Jedi Order is a very relevant series at this point in time. Like, the old school stuff was just primo. Oh yeah, it has to do with a secret invasion coming in from outside the galaxy. No one knows what's happening. Turns out they were on the inside sabotaging everything from the very beginning.
Oh wow.
And it's like, Yeah, the enemies are like Hellraiser mixed with the Flood from Halo, and it's like, oh, it's so good. The Yuzon Vong, it's all about pain rituals and tormenting themselves to the point of gaining their god's acceptance and having to die in battle and torturing Jedi, but also simultaneously going in as reptilian shapeshifters with I think they're called Uglith cloakers they put on, and they shapeshift into humans and they pretend to be Imperial officers, and they're basically setting off apocalypses all across the galaxy, and everyone's just like, what the fuck is happening? And it's like, it's over 20 books, I think, and it's a great series.
Well, they've certainly expanded upon, you know, what the original things were, and that's exciting. And I see clearly that Star Wars takes a lot of its inspiration from Gnostic literature, ancient religions, and the esoteric, and even a little bit of conspiracy too. You know,
well, George Lucas, he studied under Joseph Campbell, so he was a student of his.
The hero's journey is literally what, I mean, well, a lot of things are. But yeah, and if you get a chance, check out the Mahabharata is a bit long, but the Bhagavad Gita, however, is translated to English, and that's it's not too long of a read. It's an average book size, and read that, and then watch Star Wars, the second one with Yoda and Luke together.
Okay.
I think it's Return of the Jedi, and
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. So read one and then watch the other, and it's amazing how absolutely similar they are. The names have changed, but the story is the same, as they say. And
interesting.
Oh, what was I going to say before the Joseph Campbell thing? Oh, I was excited. Now, a lot of people, the new Star Wars movies, they don't like them, and I get it, whatever. But on I think it was Rogue One or something like that, they found out that the weapons makers were supplying weapons to both sides, the rebellion and also
the Last Jedi, where they're like, they're manufacturing TIE fighters and X-Wings. What did you expect?
So yeah, they even dip into conspiracy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised to see. So the movie kind of sucked, but the newest Jurassic Park, I see these movies. I take my son to the movie theaters, you know.
I still love these movies too. For all my critiques with Disney, I see every Star Wars day one. As soon as they happen, I go to the movie theaters, I buy the tickets, I'm there. Like, all my criticisms aside, fanboy through and through.
Nothing wrong with that, right? So, but I was surprised as hell to see in a Jurassic Park movie, it's supposed to be about dinosaurs getting loose, and that's about it. That's the plot. They had these bugs that would go around destroying crops if the crops wasn't owned by some company that I think even rhymed with Monsanto. Like, I was like, damn.
Oh, that's like the one Jurassic Park I ain't seen. I need to check that one out.
Dude, I mean, don't get the movie wasn't very good, but that part though, everybody in the theaters was like, "What is the bugs and crops? What's going on? Like, this is dumb." I was like, "That's the only part of the movie that's good."
Huh? Or like Godzilla and Kong, the way they did Hollow Earth for both of those movies. Oh my god, that's how I want Hollow Earth.
Yeah, right. Oh, I loved it. That was great. Did you see Moonfall with Halle Berry?
No, I saw the preview for it though. That looked amazing.
Dude, it's all Gnostic. If you were to replace a Gnostic, not like the Gospel of Thomas or like maybe a little bit of the Gospel of John, the way it's described to him from that being. But if you take the Gnostic mythology, I should say, that's been passed down, and then apply technological terms to it, like AI and stuff, boom, you've got Moonfall, and it ties in moon lore, and it's an overall good movie. It didn't do very good in the box office, I think, but I mean, you've got Gnostic lore, and you got Halle Berry looking fine as fuck at 60 years old. I mean, what do you want, you know?
She's doing pretty damn well. And I mean, these movies too, whenever you like take the deeper meaning to shit too, like my grandma and I, we went to go see Noah back when that came out years ago.
Yeah.
The one with Russell Crowe.
Right.
Had no idea we were going to see the Nephilim. And I had never seen my grandma go off about aliens before like that. She was all of a sudden talking about the falling beings and the Gnostic texts. And I'm just like, Grandma, I thought you used to condemn people like this. And she's just like, no, it's all the same. She's like, that was a good representation. I never thought of them as rocks, and that was amazing to see that spark that inside of her, and to see me like kind of respond to it. And it's just like, that's a magical thing because we're expanding on the question at that point.
That's awesome, and that's what the people get mad at the movie Noah because they took liberties to make them from rocks or whatever, but they got to fill the gap somehow, and they're not going to nail it. They're not. These are all inspirational. These are all meant to do exactly what you said, which is to spark inspiration. They're interpretations of the original source. We're not going to create the original source. That's not going to happen. It won't ever happen either. So the best we can do is to elaborate on those things based on our collective archetypes that we have evolved to this day. And that's exactly what they do with some of these movies. And I feel like they hit a home run. If they get it wrong, well, so did the mythologies, because the mythologies are just adaptations of archetypes that have been before them, you know? And that's all we're doing is we're trading mythologies, sparking the questions, and creating these bonds between us and grandma, who once upon a time didn't have a link, but now it does. And to me, that's what mythology is. That's what it's for in the first place, is to learn these things about ourselves, that we see something external, it causes a reaction internally within us, and that's an archetype right there. That's something that we can work with. It becomes a tool. And if that tool brings you closer together with grandma, fuck yeah, even better.
Hell yeah. And another one that was really good for her, Life of Pi. And this isn't to slander my grandma, but she used to get really angry at the Buddhists. She didn't have nice things to say about the Buddhist temples or the Muslims. Life of Pi opened her eyes up a little bit, because it opens you up to the idea of different theologies and seeing stories through different perspectives. And I think my concern in the modern moment is the corporations. I do see them kind of as satanic elements. I do see the bigwigs as kind of taking over everything. Look at Justice League, for example, the original versus the Snyder Cut. How many Snyder Cuts have we lost? You have a film that's just complete, goofy, colorful, joking nonsense, which it's fun, but it wasn't Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then the concluding of the trilogy. It was its own thing entirely that was taken on by a panicking corporation that literally hired the Suicide Squad trailer editors to edit what was filmed of the rest of Zack Snyder's movie after he dropped the project. What you get in the end is a 3-hour film that tackles so many different philosophical elements, mythological elements, and it just goes deeper than all hell. Have you watched the Snyder Cut at all?
I haven't seen really any like superhero movies, unfortunately, unless you count like Godzilla.
If you make I would say if you make one superhero movie you watch, or maybe even a few, the Man of Steel trilogy, it's Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and then Justice League. The Snyder Cut's the real one. But if you want to see the power of corporations and how they distort mythology, watch the original Justice League and then watch the Snyder Cut. I think it's on Netflix. But, this man's daughter committed suicide, and he was then forced off the project, the director, Zack Snyder, and then bullied by the corporations, faced all sorts of abuse. And it took the fans literally getting planes in the skies over Comic-Con in China and San Francisco and all over saying, release the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut, and putting that out for years. The corporations... Yeah, the corporation, Warner Brothers, they gaslit the fans for years. They're like, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. And then occasionally there was a leak of a black and gray image that would come out of something like Jon Stewart as Green Lantern, or a crazy scene that somebody wanted to see that didn't happen. And then eventually over time, Zack Snyder kind of fueled into it. And the fan rage and passion over the project outpoured so hard that Warner Brothers buckled the knee. And then they released the Snyder Cut. And it's clear from the initial version, they took all the guy out of it. They took the mythology. They took the politics. They took the deep thinking. They took it all out. They made a dead Josh Whedon film where people fall face first into chicks' boobs and have butt jokes and crap humor. And it was just an eyesore. And to see what corporations can do, and you think of, it's like, I love projects like Star Wars, but Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, there was an original script called Duel of the Fates that was infinitely better, where they were all going to get together, the old stormtroopers that had rebelled, and they were going to get together all these different factions, and they were going to go march on Coruscant, and they were going to bring down the Empire there while Rey was off dealing with Palpatine somewhere. Disney said no and gutted the project, and then we got what we got. So it's like they're targeting mythology right now.
Did you know that action movie scripts have to be filtered through the Pentagon?
Really?
Yeah. So there is, oh my goodness, I'm on the phone right now with you, and I've got the documents on my phone, and I don't have anything memorized, but
Send them my way.
I'll send them to you and everything. But there's a particular number. It's a percentage of like action and superhero movies that have been vetted by the Pentagon, and the number is so large that it makes it really seem like that might be a requirement for certain movies, and it's the Pentagon specifically. And the Pentagon, of course, is military, industrial complex, and that's another thing that's just weird to me, that we would have to vet our art and our mythology and our creative works through a military complex whose one and only notion is to create wars. In a way, I suppose the goal might be to gain public opinion for war, but there's a lot of movies that we just mentioned that rail against those type of things, like the Pentagon. So, I mean, who's to say? Did that Star Wars movie where they found out that the weapons were being sold to both sides, did that get vetted by the Pentagon? Because if so, maybe the objective isn't what I think it is, but the only information out there is that a certain amount of action movies have been scripted, sent to the Pentagon, annotated, and then sent back.
Well, what that makes me wonder, because before, well, yeah, that just horrifies me, because The Last Jedi, for example, I never considered the Pentagon, because what I was reading at the time was that there was Chinese and foreign business executives that were coming in. So they were funneling thousands, if not millions of dollars into this film, right? They had really weird requirements for, right down to Luke's Force Ghost being a weird color blue. Little things that the average viewer wouldn't nitpick, but hardcore fans would. Turned out there was foreign business executives' fingerprints on. And one of the things with the Chinese Communist Party and other nations is a lot of these films, they look at it as a form of idol worship. So there are military and government moves that are, well, military. There are government plans in place in various communist nations, from my understanding, that see films in the United States of America, such as Star Wars, such as superhero lore, as being something that the public worships, and it takes away its focus from putting your work in, from being a part of the greater collective. And so part of me wonders if there's like some sort of competition to where there's foreign aspects from outside of the United States that are nitpicking and kind of dictating what happens with these movies, and then there's also simultaneously the Pentagon, and part of me wonders how much of that is in coordination with each other, or if it's conflicting areas of interest and who wins out in the end. That's interesting.
I would love to know if it was a cooperative system or a conflicting system. That is a great question. I would love to know as well. That's fascinating.
They called him Steppenwolf, the end of worlds. He lived only to conquer. Millions fell before his blade, or rose again as his parademons. Nightmare creatures who feed on fear.
Yeah, I think I met one. We didn't hit it off.
Here in Gotham?
They're all over. They're looking for boxes.
The mother boxes.
Mother boxes. I guess Steppenwolf took the one your people were guarding. That leaves 2 more.
I'm impressed.
Don't be. I have no idea what's in them. A weapon? Some kind of power?
They don't contain power. They are power. Carried from planet to planet, the mother boxes combine to form the Unity. An apocalyptic power that not only destroys worlds, but transforms them into the primordial hellscape of Steppenwolf's birth world. We should have died, but we formed our own Unity. Amazons, Atlanteans, all the tribes of man fought side by side. Warriors of legend, allies from other worlds. Even the gods themselves all acted as one, laying down their lives to drive Steppenwolf away. Some say drove him mad. The disgrace of his first retreat. He swore our alliance would crumble. The darkness would cover the earth. And that he would return when it did. Left behind, the mother boxes were too dangerous to be kept together. One was entrusted to the Amazons, one to the Atlanteans, both sealed and guarded in secure strongholds. The box of man was buried in secret, so that no tribe would be tempted to use its power over another.
Bury it.
A great armada appeared in the sky, laying waste to all who opposed it. The leader of the invaders was a being called Darkseid, a name cursed and feared in every universe. Darkseid was met in battle by Earth's defenders, the old gods, men, Atlanteans before their descent into the sea, Amazons before their betrayal and enslavement, and guardians from the stars. Their histories had taught them not to trust each other, not to hope for an alliance, to fight apart. Darkseid waged war on Earth. He found a secret there, a power hidden in the infinity of space. He called forth mystics who worshipped and controlled three objects, the mother boxes, made from a science so advanced, it looks like sorcery. To conquer, three boxes have to synchronize and join together into the Unity. The Unity cleanses a planet with fire, transforming it into a copy of the enemy's world. All who live become servants of Darkseid, alive but drained of life. Parademons. But before the Unity could synchronize, the defenders of Earth attacked and fought as one. Amazons alongside Atlanteans, Zeus and his son Ares alongside the Guardians from the sky. A golden age of heroes fighting together to defend life on Earth. did what no world had ever done. Sent the enemies back into the stars.
Picture this. Your favorite artist has been working on their grandest project yet. Whether it's a film, book, painting, album, or TV series, the creator has been building up to this momentous piece of art for years, and you've been excitedly waiting to experience it. But when the time finally arrives, it's nothing like you expected. Each time you revisit it, you find more and more issues. It's nothing like the artist's previous work. In fact, it feels like a parody of what the artist likely intended to release. As a fan, you're left feeling incomplete with no closure, and you feel that one of your favorite things in the world has been disgraced. This is how fans of Zack Snyder's DC films felt for the last several years. For some context, Zack Snyder is an American movie director, known for his unique visual aesthetic and his dark and mature storytelling. Our story begins when he was tapped to direct Man of Steel, a Superman movie that would kickstart a universe of films inspired by DC Comics. Man of Steel divided audiences. Many thought it was the deepest, most visually epic, and most thought-provoking Superman tale ever told. Meanwhile, another camp seemed to think it drained all the fun out of Superman and was needlessly dark. The controversy became even more extreme with his follow-up movie, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, a film that is still heavily discussed to this day. Upon release in 2016, it became a cult classic, with a large group claiming it as their all-time favorite movie. They praised its meticulous storytelling, impressive world-building, unparalleled emotion, and bravery to take classic characters in innovative directions. Meanwhile, the other camp of viewers returned with the same criticisms that they had for Man of Steel. Too grim, not enough humor, and not accurate to the comic books. Some say Batman v Superman was a self-prophetic film, given one of its core messages was that people hate what they do not understand. And much of the hate for BVS arose from misunderstandings over what Snyder was conveying with these beloved characters. Another point of discussion that arose after this movie released was exactly how easily people's opinions are influenced by critical reviews. Some still reference early negative reviews from sites such as Rotten Tomatoes as instrumental in convincing the masses that BVS was a bad movie before they even stepped foot in the theaters. Enter 2017. Zack Snyder's third DC film, Justice League, is on the horizon. Snyder's diehard fanbase is certain they will enjoy this new incredible superhero adventure, which brings together the most iconic team of superhumans from the comics, and continues the hero's journey that began in 2013 with Man of Steel. Even those who disliked his previous two films are optimistic about Justice League, because it is, after all, the Justice League. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman, what's not to love? But mere months before Justice League's November release date, Zack Snyder stepped away from the project due to the tragic death of his daughter, Autumn Snyder. Autumn was a victim of depression and ultimately suicide. For the 3 months that followed her death, Snyder continued to persevere and work on Justice League, but eventually he no longer had the energy to continue, so he stepped away to be with his family. It was soon after Snyder's departure that many concerning changes occurred. The film received a 2-hour mandate from Warner Bros.' then president, Kevin Tsujihara. This was unusual because Snyder was notorious for making long films, and a movie like JL that would weave together the arcs of 6 heroes was most likely not intended to be on the shorter side. It was also announced that reshoots would occur, and Avengers director Joss Whedon would be overseeing them. Studio executives claimed at the time that Snyder chose Whedon to complete his film, and that the reshoots would be minimal and in line with Snyder's vision. All of these claims have since been proven false. To say the reshoots drastically changed the essence of the film would be an understatement. The 2-hour Justice League film that released in 2017 was reportedly made up of 25% footage shot by Snyder and 75% reshoots, and even the 25% done by Snyder was meddled with in a number of ways. The reshoots added in humor that fell flat for nearly all audiences. They prioritized less than subtle sex jokes over any kind of meaningful character development. They reanimated the film's alien antagonist to be less menacing. They added in unnecessary plot lines that went nowhere or even contradicted other parts of the film. Dozens of scenes shown in the trailers were absent from the movie. Entire character arcs were removed from the story. We now know that the majority of significant characters removed from the film were all played by actors of color. The original composer, Tom Holkenborg, was fired. The score for the movie was entirely replaced to be less emotional and more old-timey. And possibly the most infamous of all the changes, Superman's face was animated to conceal a mustache that actor Henry Cavill was obligated to keep unshaven for the sake of another movie, and the animation was a tad bit noticeable. After a private screening of the film, Zack Snyder's wife Deborah Snyder and the Dark Knight director Christopher Nolan vowed to never let Zack see the film because they knew it would break his heart. As you can imagine, there was disappointment across the board. Snyder's fans were deeply troubled by what they saw, and casual viewers were left wanting more. Critics had a new slew of complaints about this movie. It was as if the studio had read all the criticisms of the last two movies and tried to address them in over-the-top ways by shoving in humor, removing any potentially polarizing plot points, and trying to make the movie resemble an old-school comic as best they could. And the end product was something that satisfied no one.
So, I saw Justice League. I actually liked it. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm just kidding.
It doesn't really feel like a Zack Snyder movie, and I've seen all of his films. This is the least Zack Snyder-y of all of the films that I've seen him direct.
There's even one scene where it's just like, it's done now. You're like, oh, okay, something's missing, isn't there? So the pacing in some time blocks in the movie, it's a bit choppy. So I'm looking forward to seeing the director's cut or extended edition, special edition, whatever they're gonna call it.
Almost immediately after Justice League's debut, the Release the Snyder Cut movement was born. Fans were convinced that Zack Snyder had a version of the movie that was completed prior to the studio's last-minute interference. Hashtag Release the Snyder Cut started showing up across social media. Then the slogan began showing up in the real world in increasingly noticeable ways. It started with some fans holding a sign outside of the Warner Brothers headquarters. Then, the Snyder Cut t-shirts became popular in the superhero community. Soon after, fans were pooling together money for bus stop advertisements, informing everyday passersby of the story of this film. And while it may seem like an excessive amount of time and energy to spend on seeing a superhero blockbuster, this was about much more than a movie to Snyder's fans. Release the Snyder Cut was a slogan that stood for artistic integrity and opposition to an artist's work being tampered with. But even more than that, suicide awareness was a driving force behind the movement. A fraction of every dollar raised by the Snyder Cut community went to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention as a tribute to Autumn Snyder. And in the past several years, over $500,000 have been raised for the cause.
My name is Jonathan. I live in France. Release the Snyder Cut.
Warner Brothers, do the right thing. Release the Snyder Cut. I'm here to give my support to Zack Snyder and to tell Warner Brothers Pictures to please release the Snyder Cut of Justice League. You had lightning in a bottle until you meddled with it, okay? Never before has a film series with such potential been squashed because of reaction to a tone. He was right, he was real, and he was dark. But people hate what they don't understand.
But what gave these people the notion that a Snyder Cut even existed? Aside from the obvious fact that Zack Snyder had almost entirely wrapped filming by the time of his departure, and the fact that the trailers for the movie showcased a multitude of scenes missing from the theatrical cut, nicknamed Justice League because of Joss Whedon's interference, it was Zack Snyder himself who continuously fueled the flames. On Vero, Snyder's social media platform of choice, he would occasionally share black and white images from Justice League scenes that no one knew existed. As this pile of evidence slowly grew into a mountain, it became increasingly harder to deny the existence of a Snyder Cut. It was apparent that many significant scenes and characters were discarded from the film in 2017. And Snyder's knack for quietly sharing these stills, while never outright addressing the Snyder Cut, gave many fans hope. But of course, there were Snyder Cut deniers. The same voices that criticized Snyder's work in the past returned to the internet to shoot down the concept of an alternate Justice League film. They claimed these extra scenes would only make the movie marginally better, and that the studio would never invest the money into completing the animation or editing of said scenes. Many of these critics also continue to speak harshly towards Snyder and his work, trashing his films and mocking his fanbase.
I know enough of what's going on behind the scenes to know that, guys, there's no Snyder Cut. It's impossible to put together.
The Snyder Cut, that imaginary unicorn that you guys think is out there, yeah, that doesn't exist.
They want the Zack Snyder Cut, which probably doesn't exist, to be released. This will never happen.
As the months went by, the movement made itself more and more visible. Eventually, members of the cast and crew began chiming in with voices of support. It was evident many of them were legally restricted from speaking their minds to the fullest, but the likes of Jason Momoa, Aquaman, Ray Fisher, Cyborg, and Ray Porter, Darkseid, a monumental villain from the comics who was nowhere to be seen in 2017, were among some of the most vocal JL actors to join the movement. The three of them, along with many others involved in the making of the film, expressed that a Snyder Cut could very easily exist. They also stressed that Zack Snyder was a fantastic individual on and off set. He treated the cast and crew like family and was a genuine friend to everyone involved in the movie. According to these actors, Snyder deserved to see his vision realized more than anyone.
Some fans are obsessed with the so-called Snyder Cut of Justice League, an alternate cut.
Yeah.
Are you,
I'm obsessed with it too.
Are you? Yeah. What's your take on that? Like, do you want to see a different version eventually at some point, or is there a different version?
That's one thing that sucks with our business, where you just can't speak your mind, but yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll keep it at that.
I kind of knew when Joss Whedon took over, I was prepared for a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I filmed with Zack. I didn't, and it turns out that whole arc that I was in was completely gone.
Oh, wow.
It was probably, I'd estimate, about 20 or 30 minute story that kind of the story just skipped.
You see videos and you see pictures and things like that, so make of it what you will. No tinfoil hat necessary. Obviously, we're at a point now where we can acknowledge that the Snyder Cut does exist. And if anybody tells you that it doesn't, I think they may be just trying to troll you, so just don't engage. Don't engage, please. You cannot feed the trolls. Do not feed them.
In March 2019, Zack Snyder hosted an event where he screened director's cuts of his previous films. Let's remember, Snyder was notorious for making long movies even before Justice League, which resulted in most of his films having a theatrical cut and a director's cut. However, none of his previous productions were meddled with to the degree of Justice League. They were just trimmed down a bit for mainstream audiences. At this event, which has since been nicknamed SnyderCon, he dropped some bombs relating to the content of his Justice League film and the Justice League trilogy he had planned. He mentioned that the eventual release of a Snyder Cut was entirely up to the studio, and he also alluded in his usual cryptic fashion to his cut of Justice League being a whopping 214 minutes in runtime. That's over 3.5 hours.
Because he had to jump right before Darkseid boom tubes into the Batcave to murder Lois, so you have to Anyway.
Later that year, when the 2-year anniversary of Justice League came around the corner, fans made an organized effort to make #ReleaseTheSnyderCut trend worldwide. And they were successful. Hundreds of thousands of tweets that day made it one of the most discussed topics on the internet. And even A-list stars from the film, such as Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck, voiced their support using the hashtag. The movement was more alive than ever. Another critical moment was when Jason Momoa revealed in an Instagram post that Zack Snyder had personally shown him the Snyder Cut, and naturally, he loved it.
But I have seen it, so.
I've seen
the Snyder Cut, so.
So what does that mean? Because the effects aren't done. Like.
Oh, do you think Zack couldn't finish it? You don't think he?
I don't know. You tell me. He's finished.
Listen, man. Next question.
Do you think we'll ever see it?
I'm obviously indebted to Warner's and DC, and I don't know how they feel about it, but
right.
As a fan, I'm very, very happy that I got to see it.
Does it feel like a totally different movie than the Justice League that was released?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zack Snyder's Vero posts became more and more telling. He shared one image of the Snyder Cut in a vault, essentially confirming its existence and runtime in a concrete fashion. He stated that he was tired of people claiming it did not exist. He also shared a photo of Superman in his black suit, a symbolic costume from the comics that fans had theorized for the last 2 years was in his cut of the film. The movement made bigger and bolder strides after that, advertising at Comic-Cons, flying planes with banners that read #ReleaseTheSnyderCut, and even renting the billboards in Times Square. It became impossible to ignore, and when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, it became inevitable.
Release the fucking Snyder Cut, baby!
Zack Snyder invited some Warner Brothers representatives into his home in Pasadena for a private screening of the Snyder Cut. Of course, the effects weren't complete at this point, and the score was unfinished, but there was a 214-minute movie sitting on Snyder's laptop during a time when the studio was incapable of going out and filming new content, and the fans had already been doing the marketing for this movie over the last several years. The decision was clear. The studio initially suggested that Snyder release the unfinished cut with incomplete animation, but he knew his infamous critics and haters would tear apart a film that was not entirely done. If this movie were to be released, he wanted it to be finalized. On May 20th, 2020, Snyder hosted a Man of Steel watch party on Vero. He was joined by Superman actor Henry Cavill and a select group of fans. It was there that he made a legendary announcement. the Snyder Cut would be released in 2021 under the title Zack Snyder's Justice League.
When will you release the Snyder Cut?
There it is.
But I think seriously, like, to see, I mean, we were on this journey, and all these characters, I mean, it was this hero's journey for all these characters, and I think it's a shame that we never saw it come to fruition the way, you know, the way Zack intended it to be, you know.
Yeah.
To see them reach their journey to become, you know, the Justice League, the team that they.
It would have been. It would have been. Listen, and look, it. Like I told you, I have it. So it's just a question of like, we got to find a way to show it someday.
I reckon you should show it.
What do you think I should just show it?
Yeah, I think we should.
I reckon you too.
No disagreement here. I think that. I mean, I don't have I can't show the movie right now, you know, because it's still a little bit to do. But I mean, there is this. See that?
Oh
my God!
See that shit? See that shit? You put it out there. You believe that? Releasing the Snyder Cut? HBO Max, man, I can't believe it. It's happening, finally. Release the Snyder Cut. Jimmy!
Shout out to the support, especially the support that you've given the Snyders for Autumn and for their family. I know they appreciate it beyond. Oh man, here we go. All right. Oh man. It means a lot. Man, y'all gotta give me a second.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. 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 I did my best, it wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
In the weeks that followed, it was revealed that the movie was truly being restored to the glory Snyder had intended for it, with an estimated budget of $70 million. Steppenwolf, the film's antagonist, would be reanimated to his original design. All unfinished animation would be completed. The color grading and other visual aspects would be done in Snyder's signature style. Sam Hulkenberg, the original composer, would return to complete his score for the film. And once finished, Zack Snyder's Justice League would have a runtime of 4 hours. Snyder's fans rejoiced, and Snyder's haters returned with their voices of discouragement. They changed their message from "the Snyder Cut does not exist" to "the Snyder Cut won't be any good." And when it was announced that some additional footage would be filmed in October of 2020, the critics were quick to say that a Snyder Cut never existed in the first place, and Zack was scrambling to film the movie now. Of course, this was confirmed to be false. Zack Snyder confirmed that only 4 minutes of new content was filmed, and Deborah Snyder said the new footage was essentially just one scene and a few extra shots. In the year following the announcement of Zack Snyder's Justice League, teasers, trailers, posters, stills, and tracks from the score have been released. They all clearly hold up to Snyder's standards, visually and emotionally. The film is also set to be released in a boxier aspect ratio, rather than the usual widescreen format of modern films. This is because Snyder's team has restored the entire film, so no cropping will occur whatsoever. It also makes for an optimal IMAX experience once theaters have opened back up. Some other significant announcements include the film's official R rating and the return of Jared Leto as the Joker. For the first time, Ben Affleck's Batman and Leto's Joker will have a notable interaction. This, along with other unexpected elements of the movie, the inclusion of fan-favorite character Martian Manhunter, the impressive promotional materials, and the positive word of mouth spread by the Snyder Cut community, has swayed many casual fans and even those who disliked Snyder's last 2 DC films to become excited for the release of his Justice League on HBO Max, March 18th. The other most prominent buzz around Justice League has been allegations made by cyborg actor Ray Fisher against Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, and John Berg, all of whom were involved in the infamous 2017 reshoots. Fisher has claimed that Whedon was abusive and racist, and was enabled by Johns and Berg. He has also claimed that Johns made several racist comments and threatened his career. For a more in-depth look at these allegations, visit any of Fisher's social media platforms to see his direct statements.
Obviously, I put out some pretty strong words and some pretty strong comments about Joss Whedon, and every single one of those words, every single one of those comments is true. I've been in projects where, artistically speaking, I did not agree, but you do your work. You go there, you do it. But there is a certain amount of abuse. There's a certain amount of behavior that one is willing to tolerate, and once it gets beyond that point, you got to go ahead and deal with it. And so when you take those grievances to people who are in charge and they do nothing about it, or they try to placate you, they don't deal with the issues, eventually you're going to have to say something, right? And I said, I'm never going to let anything like that happen again, period. So if I got to take the L, if I got to take the hit for this, I'll take it completely. But I guarantee you this, we're going to get to the heart of everything. And if anything I said about that man is untrue, I invite him wholeheartedly to sue me for libel, to sue me for slander. Anything.
It's still not just a movie, you know? No. We fought for Zack and his family, and we fought for you guys as well.
An investigation into the matter was held, but Fisher claims that DC Films president Walter Hamada attempted to undermine and delegitimize it. Rather than release a statement, Hamada has removed Fisher from the role of Cyborg in the upcoming The Flash film. While fans are optimistic that the situation will be cleared up and Fisher will return to the role due to high demand, many feel that the Snyder Cut will be bittersweet, due to being Fisher's first and potentially last time playing the hero. As Snyder has been saying since 2017, Cyborg is the heart of the film. Having a black, disabled superhero with an absent father as an integral part of the story has meant a lot to Ray Fisher and many other Justice League fans. But this isn't the only instance of significant representation in Justice League. Zack Snyder cast Jason Momoa, a Pacific Islander with a cultural and personal connection to the ocean, as Aquaman. He also cast Gal Gadot, an Israeli woman with military experience, as the warrior princess Wonder Woman. Like most of Snyder's creative choices, these castings caused controversy initially, but have meant a great deal to many comic book fans of color. So not only will the Snyder Cut do right by an iconic superhero team that was disrespected in 2017, it will also do right by a diverse cast and could be hugely inspirational to many fans yet to see heroes that look like themselves taken seriously on the big screen.
Making a movie is hard enough. The story of the Snyder Cut of Justice League is a saga that is almost 8 years in the making. It's a movie that was never going to see the light of day, but due to the perseverance of thousands of fans around the world, millions of tweets, incredible social media activations, whether it be billboards in Times Square, bus stops in San Diego, or airplanes literally flying around the studio, Those amazing and dedicated fans got a giant corporation like Warner Media to take notice of them, hear what they had to say, and got them finally to agree to finish the film as I originally intended. These fans were also able to join together and create a community that got behind a cause that is not only important to me and my family, but also needed in the world. That cause is mental health awareness and suicide prevention. With the same billboards and tweets that they used to get the movie made, the fans were able to raise over $500,000 for AFSP and to generate so much awareness for a topic that is oftentimes in the dark.
At the time of this documentary's release, the Snyder Cut is mere days away. Fans are already rallying for Snyder to return to direct more Justice League films, since this particular movie was originally meant to be part 3 of a 5-part series. Snyder has said the studio is not currently invested in continuing his storyline, but given the insane and unpredictable story of the Snyder Cut, there is no way to be certain what may happen next. A new hashtag, Restore the Snyderverse, has been growing in popularity, urging Warner Brothers to let Snyder direct more DC films, rather than cut ties with him after his JL drops. But regardless of if the franchise continues, this movie's journey is unlike anything in the history of cinema, and fans are lucky to be receiving a film that is a director's honestly uncompromised vision. At the end of the day, Release the Snyder Cut was a movement fueled by love for storytelling, love for DC's heroes, and empathy for the Snyder family. It endured criticism, hate, denial, and countless other obstacles. In a fashion that oddly mirrors the plot of the movie, one man's loss brought together a group of like-minded individuals who fought to achieve a common goal. And they succeeded.
It's funny. You would talk about people who died in my arms. Because when I held Harley Quinn and she was bleeding and dying, she begged me with her last breath that when I killed you, and make no mistake, I will fucking kill you, that I do it slow. I'm gonna honor that promise. Maybe this will come in handy.
Honor? Really, Bruce? Honor? We live in a society where honor is a distant memory. By the way, who do you think screamed the loudest? The girl? Or the boy?
Welcome back to the channel. So a couple of months ago, the storyboards for Justice League 2 and 3 were leaked, just before the release of the Snyder Cut. Now this wasn't a bad thing, as Zack Snyder wanted them to be leaked to try and increase the hype for the Snyder Cut, as well as a possible Justice League 2 and 3. So in today's video, I will be narrating those storyboards, and there will be another video later this week that explains why I think Snyder's vision is actually happening in the DCEU right now. Although originally pitched as one film, we believe the character arcs for our heroes and villains, along with the epic battle with Darkseid, which unites the League, the world, and the entire DC universe, warrants 2 films. However, this does not mean that you have 2 films centered on Darkseid's invasion. Rather, Justice League 2 would be a very grounded, personal, and character-driven film that would follow the Justice League both together and separately as they mend old wounds on the road to becoming better and stronger heroes, while Lex Luthor recruits a league of his own made up of revenge-driven villains introduced in the heroes' solo films: Dr. Moreau, Wonder Woman 2017, Len Snart, The Flash 2018, Orm and Black Manta, Aquaman 2018, and the Riddler in The Batman. These villains would link all the DC films together. Like Empire Strikes Back and the last Harry Potter films, Justice League 2 would end with a cliffhanger. revealing only at the end of the film Lex and his League are connected to Darkseid, then flash forwarding 5 years into the future, where Darkseid has taken Earth. The hero's arcs throughout parts 2 and 2A. With Lois's help, the back from the dead Superman will learn to become Clark Kent again, feeling more human than ever as he and Lois starts a family. Wonder Woman will reconnect with the Amazons and her mother, eventually becoming their new queen, and rejoining these isolationist warriors with the outside world. Aquaman, with the help of Mera, will bring the Seven Kingdoms together, becoming the one true king, building a new alliance between the oceans and the surface. The Flash will free himself from the past, releasing his father from prison with Cyborg's help, and learning how to master his time-traveling abilities, literally becoming able to be in two places at once. Cyborg will evolve both into the modern-day god of the digital age and into a human once again. And Batman will ultimately sacrifice his life for these unlikely friends and the woman he loves, leaving behind a legacy that will never truly die. Justice League 2 2019. The Justice League United. We open with the Justice League in action during a natural disaster, working as the efficient, powerful team they've become weeks after JL1. They act together, they save lives, but they're refugees, so political tension is high. The world is on edge. In the aftermath, the Justice League regroup at the only headquarters they know, the Batcave. Flash is enthusiastic, while Superman remains a bit distant, at least with Batman, and Aquaman is facing a continued skepticism of the surface world and his involvement in it by the people of Atlantis. Wonder Woman relates to Arthur, her people abandoned this world long ago. It is clear that although the League is united, the world is not. The League goes back to their individual lives to mend old wounds, except for Batman, who's dealing with fresh ones, left alone in the cave. Bruce secretly meets with Lois, both of them still searching for Lex Luthor. There's tension between them since Superman has returned. The meeting ends after Lois tells Bruce that Superman needs her more than ever. Bruce knows Lois is hiding something else. Meanwhile, deep in the Brazilian jungle, Lex Luthor locates Dr. Maru, last seen in Wonder Woman, still alive, experimenting on herself, prolonging her life and testing new chemical weapons on unfortunate human lab rats. Like an obsessed stalker, Maru has spent decades collecting information and artifacts on Diana and the Amazons. Now that Diana has become known to the world, Lex offers Maru a chance at revenge. Same revenge he wants on Diana's friends, Superman and Batman. Maru accepts, Lex smiles, then let it begin. In the Atacama Desert, with Maru's help, Lex breaks Orm and Black Manta out of the desert prison, where they were imprisoned at the end of Aquaman. Outside of Central City, in Iron Heights, Lex finds Len Snart, where he was left in the Flash, and offers Len a chance to advance his weaponry and take down the fastest man alive. Intercut Lex and the villains with the Justice League returning to their lives. In Metropolis, Superman asks Lois when she was going to tell him. Tell you what, Clark? Superman says he can hear the second heartbeat, and she shouldn't call him Clark. Clark is dead. The world believes that too. Superman mistakes Lois' hesitation for fear. At the Louvre in Paris, Diana and Menelippe, the Amazon who came to warn Diana about Steppenwolf, discover that there may be a way to remember the path back to Themyscira. Diana must use the lasso on herself to unlock her mind. It's a dangerous process, but Diana wants to help Menelippe get home, and Diana wants to see her mother again, even if she might reject her. Diana puts the lasso on, and suddenly she's overwhelmed by visions. In the beginning, they're wonderful. For the first time in over a century, Diana sees her home. Soaring over the island, she sees the Amazons and finally her mother. But then the visions grow dark. Diana sees herself as the god of war, in a battle with Superman. As she kills him, Diana cries out. Menelippe frees Diana from the lasso. Despite the pain and confusion, Diana remembers the way home. In a Central City courthouse, Barry is at a hearing. Thanks to Cyborg and Iris, and a troupe of lawyers from Wayne, the state has examined new evidence that Barry and Vic have presented and agree to reopen Henry Allen's case. Along an underwater continental shelf, Aquaman and Mera are in a violent battle with the last of the Seven Kingdoms, the Unseen. Exposed around tidal pools and active volcano lava flows, Arthur has the 7th king on the ground, his trident at his throat. The 7th king tells him to kill him. Arthur says he wants an alliance. The 7th king refuses. Arthur leaves frustrated. The last kingdom refuses to unite. In the Batcave, Cyborg upgrades the cave, even providing a female AI voice for Alfred, who has become a father figure of sorts. Cyborg asks Alfred why he's never home. Alfred solemnly replies, because then he'd have to face himself. Batman on Lois on the hunt for Lex Luthor. Batman moves deeper into the Canadian wilderness. He fights his way through a secret location only to discover that not Lex Luthor hiding out, but the Riddler. Awake for days, maybe weeks, Riddler has a long unkept beard, his fingers dirty, his rantings written across the walls of his cabin. He looks at Batman, a man possessed. Luthor asks the question. I had to know the answer. Lois is also on Luthor's trail. She's located Dr. Maru's lair in the Brazilian jungle. Lois writes everything in a journal, keeping it offline and private. She grows pale as she realizes who Maru is and what Lex might be up to. He's forming a team of his own. Back in the Canadian wilderness, Batman faces off against the Riddler. He tells Bruce about how Lex came to him for information. Lex presented the anti-life equation, the riddle of life itself, and the Riddler solved it. He knows what it can do, and once it's unlocked, Lex will make life meaningless. The Riddler raises a gun, but points it at his own head. Time to solve the last riddle. Batman's shocked as Riddler kills himself. The Justice League members unite with their families. Wonder Woman and Menelope arrive in Themyscira. Diana's unsure what her mother's reaction will be, but a tearful and overjoyed Hippolyta embraces her. The Queen declares there will be a celebration unlike any other in Amazon history. Her daughter is home. In the oceans, Aquaman and Mera bring the final kingdom of the Seven, the Unseen, into their alliance. For the first time since Atlantis sank, it is once again united. In Central City, for the first time since he was a kid, there is no wall of glass between Barry and his father. Henry Allen is released from prison. Barry's about to tell his father who he is. In Metropolis, Lois returns to Superman, tells him she will accept Clark is gone, but she has to go, still on the trail of Lex. In Gotham, Batman returns from the wilderness, shaken by Riddler, intercut with Lois discovering from General Swanwick that Lex has 3 mother boxes. Lex activates his plan. At the Three Rivers, helicopters survey the area. Lex is on the scene. His team is elsewhere, but in contact with him. Lex activates the boxes, his true plan, to destroy the Justice League and take this secret power called the anti-life equation for his own. It will give him the power over all living life. The anti-life equation glows as Lex turns on the boxes. Cyborg blinks, feeling a horrible emptiness as the influx of data stops for the first time since he went online. And a boom tube erupts in front of Lex, surprising him. Emerging from the portal, Desard, the horrific, sadistic servant of his master, Darkseid, who emerges behind him. Darkseid takes the power of the anti-life equation for himself. In the Batcave, Superman, Batman, and Lois regroup. They learn of Darkseid's arrival. Superman tells Batman that this is a fight among the gods. She's my world, he tells Bruce. Protect her. Superman flies off to confront Darkseid. After Superman leaves, Bruce and Lois argue. Bruce knows she's pregnant. Lois ends the argument by telling Bruce, "You're not the father." She tries to tell Bruce about what she's discovered with what Lex is planning, but he won't listen. At the Three Rivers, taking in Darkseid's arrival, Lex tells Darkseid that Darkseid has the power to kill Superman. Darkseid moves forward, acknowledging Lex. He says to Lex, "I don't want him dead. I want Superman to submit." "The girl," says Lex. "She's the key to breaking his spirit." Superman arrives and a battle with Darkseid erupts. The Darkseid booms to Lois, the Batcave collapsing around her and Batman at his arrival. Bruce looks down at Darkseid and Lois from behind the glass wall above. Darkseid stares at Lois. Bruce is overwhelmed. Superman flies at incredible speed to Gotham. He arrives just in time to see Darkseid unleashing his Omega beams from his eyes, turning Lois into ash. Superman cries out, his soul shatters. Grief-stricken, he moves to tear Darkseid apart, but Darkseid gazes at him, the power of the anti-life coursing through his veins. Superman stops, his mind infected by Darkseid. Bruce watches it all in horror. Superman grabs his head in pain, eyes burning. Before Lois is able to warn everyone, Lex signals his team to attack. On Themyscira, Dr. Maru unleashes a chemical gas that covers the island and kills the Amazons. Even Diana, who's in her mother's arms, Maru dies herself, a sick and twisted smile on her face. In Atlantis, Orm and Black Manta attack the Coronation, killing Arthur, Mira barely surviving herself, a cut across her face. In Central City, Len attacks Flash with his amped-up weapons, courtesy of Luthor. Cyborg is blown apart, saving Barry, losing his lower half. Back at the Batcave, Batman watches in horror as Darkseid takes full control of Superman. Superman turns on Batman and he barely escapes. Lex believes he's won, but comes face to face with Superman. He looks at Lex with burning red eyes and lights him on fire. As Lex screams, the world goes red, and, cut to, 5 years later. Sand dunes, smouldering solar pits, Gothic spires rising from the desert. Once this was Gotham. Now, like the rest of the Earth, it belongs to Darkseid. Coming over the dune, post-apocalyptic Batman, as seen in BVS, with an army of rebels, the surviving members of the Justice League, walk over the rise to see the decapitated Wayne Manor. Batman leads them. Flash drags what's left of Cyborg behind him. Bruce looks up to the sky, grimly. We need to get inside, before night. He's coming. Justice League 2A, 2020. Green Lantern comes to a post-Darkseid Earth. We open by introducing Green Lantern to the Justice League film universe. He's inside his ship, crashing to Earth, desperately trying to make contact with someone, anyone, but there's no response, only static. The ship crashes hard. Disorientated, Lantern hears someone outside, opening the door. A silhouette figure peers in. It's Batman. Opening on the 5 years later Earth scene at the end of JL2. Parademon's conveyor onto the ship. Batman defending Lantern. Then an unexpected ally assists Batman. Deadshot firing at the Parademons. In this post-Darkseid world, Deadshot is teamed up with the Dark Knight. They're then joined by the Flash. Batman barks at the Flash to stay out of the fight. Barry's too important to the mission to risk getting hurt. Flash saves Batman, cocky, but is soon overwhelmed by parademons. Flash is almost killed, but Lantern saves him. The iconic friendship between them begin. Lantern looks across the Earth, analysing it with his ring. He explains to them who he is and who the Green Lantern Corps is, or was. How he came here looking for his partner from Earth, who's missing and presumed dead, like most of the Lanterns. Darkseid's army is paving their way across the universe. In the sky, the Big Dipper constellation is missing 2 stars. Batman says that all the stars will go out because of what's happening on Earth. The sun is setting. Batman says they need to move. The Justice League regroup. Batman, Deadshot, Flash, and Lantern return to the League's hidden base camp under Wayne Manor. Mira joins them, walking to the camp, across the desert with Arthur's trident slung across her shoulders, carrying 2 buckets of water. Mira remarks as she had to venture further outside of camp to locate drinkable water. Bruce explains his operation to Lantern. They are planning on a move that will end Darkseid's reign on Earth. Lantern doesn't think they have a shot. He wants to repair his ship and try and find any surviving members of the Corps. Lantern wonders what this Justice League could do to stop Darkseid. The Last Supper of the Justice League. Reveal post-Darkseid Cyborg, now half a man, able to plug into machinery, hanging in the Batcave working on massive technology. A cosmic treadmill that will help the Flash jump back in time. To what end, Lantern asks. Cyborg tells Lantern the specifics of how time travel works. It's very uncontrollable, and even if they can get Flash to travel back, they can only try this once a year, so that the Earth will be in the very same spot and the Flash doesn't jump into solid bedrock. Flash shrugs. Or space. In order to operate it, they need to steal a mother box from Darkseid's army, and they know where one is. But once they power this machine up, they'll get his attention. Lantern asks who. Mira answers, a Darkseid-controlled Superman. Even Lantern has heard of the Kryptonian. Worried that he's under the control of Darkseid, he heard his spirit was unbreakable. Deadshot goes on. Across the world, beyond parademons, nearly the entire population has fallen to the anti-life equation, their minds being completely controlled by Darkseid. Deadshot says he remembers when his daughter was taken. It haunts him. Worse than death. They need to move soon. The planet's alignment is tomorrow night, where Earth will be in the same place it was when Bruce first saw Flash in the Batcave. If they don't jump then, they won't have another opportunity for an entire year. They all agree it's simple. You have to stop Lex. If Lex is stopped, Darkseid will never come here and Lex will never slaughter the Justice League. Afterwards, Bruce pulls Barry aside. Bruce tells him that it won't work. He was trying to stop Lex already. Flash has to say something else. Bruce says that this is his fault. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Bruce admits she was Superman's world. I believe I broke that connection. Bruce whispers in Barry's ear, and Flash's eyes go wide. Flash can't help but say, "No way." Bruce responds, "Tell me that. It will change everything." The mission. The mission starts at dawn. In a Fury Road-inspired Batmobile, the Justice League, Batman, Green Lantern, Deadshot, and Mirror break into the Stronghold, a cathedral swarming with anti-life controlled people, Darkseid soldiers. Human priests kneel at the Mother Box. Batman says as soon as they can get the Mother Box, Superman will be aware of them. Back at the Batcave, Cyborg and the Flash are preparing for Flash's jump. Cyborg makes it clear that the Flash won't have much time. He needs to deliver the message before he crumbles into nothingness. But if Barry succeeds, it won't matter. None of this will have ever happened. Batman and the others steal the Mother Box, then make a dead run back to the Batcave as the Flash and Cyborg prepare for Barry's jump. Superman is in pursuit. Superman arrives and faces off against the League. From a tower, Deadshot fires a kryptonite bullet at Superman's back, but Superman dodges it. Deadshot tells Batman, "This better work. This better save my daughter." Superman flies through the tower, killing Deadshot. Mirror tries to remove the water from Superman. He crushes her. Green Lantern fires his ring at Superman, but he sends his corrupted heat vision into the ring, until the ring explodes, taking Lantern's arm with it. Cyborg does what he can against Superman as Flash prepares to jump. Just after Cyborg activates the machine, Superman tosses him to the Parademons. They tear him apart. Then finally, it's Batman facing off against Superman. The Flash runs hard on the machine, seconds away from the jump. Batman is armed with the kryptonite spear, but Superman impales Batman with it. As these two heroes struggle, the Flash races as fast as he can, exploding through time, just before Superman reaches him. Then, we're with Bruce and Lois, as they first argue in jail too. "You're not the father," Lois storms out of the Batcave when the Flash arrives, landing in the Justice League 2 moment. He tells Bruce what he didn't hear before, what Bruce whispered in the Flash's ear. "Lois lied to you. You're the father." After delivering his message, the Flash vanishes from existence. Lois comes down, trying to reconnect with Bruce, who is still reeling from the information. Again, Lois is insisting he listens to her. This time, he does. She tells him Lex has a plan to kill the Justice League. Working together, they discover his attack plans against the League. Suddenly, Darkseid's boom tube opens, water pouring into the Batcave again. Darkseid looks at Lois, Bruce looking down from above behind the glass again. But this time, Bruce goes into action, smashing through the glass, throwing himself in front of Darkseid's Omega Beams as he moves Lois out of the way. He's struck by them, crying out, but he survives. Superman arrives in time to see Batman injured. He flies into a rage, but instead of being broken, he's empowered, angry. Superman puts Darkseid on his heels, and Darkseid is forced to retreat. Lois tells Superman he has to warn the others. Lex has a plan. With information from Lois on Lex's Injustice League, Superman saves the League, stopping Maru from releasing the gas on Themyscira, Orm and Black Manta from killing Aquaman, and Len from taking out Cyborg. Meanwhile, Bruce reveals to Lois that although he's alive, he was hit. There's a darkness growing across his body. He's in pain. But they need to keep fighting. He tells Lois as he boards the Batplane, "I could have had a life outside of the cave with you." Earth unites against Darkseid. Darkseid's full-scale invasion begins, and it's too much for the Justice League to handle on their own. But they won't have to. Led and inspired by Superman, the countries of the world come together. Armies, air forces, navies. Wonder Woman and her mother lead the Amazons off Themyscira to join the war. In the oceans, Aquaman pleads to the Seven Kingdoms, declaring that there's an eighth, the surface world, and they must be allies, not enemies. The Seven Kingdoms rise to join the Amazons and the surface. The entire world becomes a Justice League. In Lord of the Rings-like finale, the history of the three armies that first battled Darkseid echoes itself today: the world of men, the Amazons, and the Atlanteans. As the battle continues, Green Lantern joins the fight with the alien Green Lantern Corps. It's the DC Universe together for the first time, on a scale unlike that's ever been seen, battling to save the world together. During the battle, Hippolyta dies, saving her daughter, proud of what she's done. The Flash is able to move so quickly, he masters his powers. Existing in two places at once, unstoppable, he takes out an entire army himself. Cyborg is able to overpower the Mother Boxes, taking control of them and triggering a chain reaction that destroys them, weakening Darkseid. It's ultimately a dying Batman who sacrifices himself to save the League and the world, destroying Darkseid. In the aftermath, Diana becomes the new queen of the Amazons, leading them to rejoin the outside world and restore and inspire peace. With the Amazons at her side, Diana negotiates peace between the countries of the world, unlike anything in history. Arthur is recognized by the kingdoms as a true king that has helped unite the world. The skepticism over his human heritage not only gone, but replaced with admiration. Cyborg evolves, becoming a god of the digital age, and able to transform himself to look human again. Lois mourns Bruce's death. Superman looks closer, realizing that Lois is carrying Bruce's child. Lois admits it, but he already knows. Maybe he always did, he says. He saw what he needed to do, but he doesn't shy away. Instead, he embraces Lois and her unborn child. He has a reason to be Clark again. 20 years later, after a memorial honouring the Batman's sacrifice, Commissioner Barbara Gordon asks Lois, "What are you going to tell him?" referring to telling Lois's son the truth about his father. For the first time in decades, crime is returning to Gotham, and it needs the Batman again. Lois takes her son to the Batcave and reveals the truth, that his father was Bruce Wayne, Batman. In Gotham, rising from the shadows and out into the moonlight, we all meet the new Batman. The end.